Hi, this is Liliana. So we're going to be talking about Rex Heuermann in the Gilgo Beach murders. Warning, this video does contain material about a serial killer, human remains, violence against women, dismemberment, quite a few different things that are happening throughout the investigative process. So just be advised, if that's not your thing, you should probably hop off now because you're not gonna like it. While this documentary is based off of information that I found while researching about Rex, there are some portions that are unresolved and have some sort of back and forth with it. Some people have a differing opinion, others have their own. I do share mine, and you may not agree with it, and that's okay. Above all, this video is to be used to remember the victims and everything they went through, including their families and the community that was affected by this horrible person, and examine the investigation that sought justice for them. So I will be doing a modern traditional Gothic look and talking about the crime story at the same time. I do encourage you to search into the Hulu documentary that covers Rex and his crimes and the victims. It's good to get a different perspective. You can also listen to the full 911 phone call from Shannan, and it's a really hard listen, but I listened to the whole thing, and partially the reason why I have the opinion that I do. He was born in September 13th, 1963 in Massapequa Park, New York. So he was born to Theodore and Dolores. So childhood acquaintances described Rex as a mama's boy, and saying he was extremely close to his mother, whom characterized as controlling. His father, Theodore, he was a World War II veteran, a former second lieutenant within the United States Air Force. After his father's death, he continued living in his childhood home in Massapequa Park, New York, with his mother. So in 1994, Rex actually bought the childhood home from his mother for $170,000. He remained living in that residence till 2023, when his arrest took place. Over the years, neighbors did have complaints, stating that the deteriorated outside look of his house was just bringing down the value of the neighborhood, because everything else was just upscale, super nice. It's a good area, really. So it's honestly, the whole thing's shocking, but that's besides the point. But they were not happy about that. I mean, who would be? Rex graduated from Berner High School in 1981. And just a little side note, among the members of his class, one of them being actor William Baldwin. So, kind of interesting. After high school, Rex studied architecture at the Institute of Technology. By 1987, he was working for an architectural firm in Manhattan, beginning the career path that would eventually lead him to establish himself as a successful architectural consultant. Rex married his first wife in September 29th, 1990 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So, marriage ended in 4 years. That brings us to Elsa Ellerup, and he married her in 1996. Together they lived in his childhood home, and they had 2 children. And they stayed married until 2023, when he got arrested, and she ended up divorcing him as soon as that happened. Go her. At approximately 4:51 in the morning on May 1st, 2010, Shannan called 911. During the 20-minute approximate phone call, she sounded frightened, needed help, and stated a multitude of times that someone was trying to kill her. After leaving Brewer's home, Shannan ran to a multitude of houses. Several people encountered her that morning, knocking frantically at their door. A neighbor even called the police, trying to assist her, but did not want to let her in. Eventually, Shannan disappeared into the night and was not seen again. And for years, Shannan's family fought the police department to release that 911 phone call. Police department refused because they thought it would interfere with the ongoing investigation into the serial killer. After a long time of legal battles, Shannan's family was able to get the police department to release the phone call. And when you think about it, I'm trying to understand from an outside perspective because I'm not directly affected by this situation. But I will say, I don't understand why they couldn't just release the audio call. I don't see how that would interfere, but help with the investigation. I don't agree. I don't agree with the police department on this one. I really don't. This part gets me kind of angry because Shannan's a victim. But after 2020, when they said that they would release the recordings, it finally happened in 2022. Shannan's case is the most controversial part of this whole thing. Some people believe that she ran into a heavily vegetated field outside of that neighborhood that she was in, fell, tripped, and landed face first and like drowned in shallow water. I've heard some people say that she must have just died from natural causes or something along the lines of that. In 2014, Dr. Michael Baden did an independent examination of her remains, and it raised questions about the official examination. Dr. Michael cited findings of signs of strangulation. I firmly believe after hearing the 911 call, the examination from Dr. Michael, I think that she was a victim of Rex. And it's deeply disappointing that the police dragged their feet and didn't serve justice for her, didn't release the audio phone call from the 911 for 12 years. I feel horrible for her family, and I feel even worse for Shannan herself. She is a victim. December of 2010, while searching for Shannan, they ended up finding 4 bodies on the Gilgo beach. Led them to start finding out they had a serial killer on their hands. On December 13th, 2011, Shannan's skeletal remains were found in a marshy area of Oak Beach. It was approximately about a half mile of her last known location. Let's go into the Gilgo Four that the investigators ran into when searching for Shannan. So the first person that they found was Maureen Ann Brainerd Barnes. She was a 25-year-old mother with 2 kids, and she was from Connecticut. She had previously stepped away from being an escort, but she got an eviction notice, which landed her to do it a little bit more to try to make ends meet once again. So, unfortunately, she traveled to New York, got a Super 8 motel room, and offered her escort services online. And on July 9th, 2007, she called a friend, letting them know that she was going to be meeting a client outside of the motel, and that person was Rex. She was never seen again. One of Maureen's friends, she started receiving phone calls from a blocked or no caller ID phone number, and they were very disturbing. During the phone calls, one of the things that he stated was that he had seen Maureen at a quote-unquote whorehouse in Queens. Sarah naturally asked if they could call her back, on a traceable phone number so they can tell the police that she's okay. He says, oh yeah, I'll call you back, no worries. He never calls back. And the next person that was found was Melissa Bartholomew. Her disappearance was on July 12th, 2009. She was 24 years old and originally from Erie County, New York. She later moved to the Bronx where she worked as an escort and went by Chloe. On the night she disappeared, Melissa met with a client, and that client was Rex. After she deposited approximately $900 into her bank account, she attempted to call an ex-boyfriend but was unable to reach him. That was the last confirmed activity before she vanished. About 1 week after Melissa disappeared, Melissa's teenage younger sister started receiving phone calls off of Melissa's phone. The calls continued for 5 total weeks. So here's some of the things that was said to the 15-year-old girl. The girl was asked whether she was a whore like her sister. What the fuck? And another example of something that Rex would say on the phone to her, your sister's dead and I'm gonna watch her rot. However, at the time, investigators were not able to identify who the caller was. This alone was one of the most disturbing things that happened within the case. He would taunt the victims' families and the people that they cared about. He is an idiot. The next victim is Megan Waterman. Megan Waterman was 22 years old from Maine. She was a mother with a young daughter, left her daughter with her family, and then traveled to Long Island. Megan was staying at a motel, offering online her escort services. The day before she disappeared, she told her boyfriend that she was going out and would call him later. On June 6, 2010, she left the motel. The surveillance footage caught her leaving. She was never seen again. On June 8, 2010, she was reported missing because she did not call to check in on her daughter, and her family knew it was weird. The next one is Amber. Her disappearance was September 2nd, 2010. Before moving to Long Island, she lived in Florida and worked as a waitress. She was described by family as a strong student when she was younger, and as she got older, she struggled with addiction. It's really sad. So on the night that she disappeared, Amber received a multitude of phone calls from a man wanting to hire her. He offered her $2,500 for her services. That is an unusually high amount. If you weren't aware, Amber got excited because of the high amount and was never seen alive again. So Amber's roommate actually helped with this investigation dramatically, had a description of the unknown client and what he drove. Described the client as extremely large. He was a huge man, maybe like 6'4", 6'6", broad shoulders, big. And the vehicle that he drove was a roughly 2002 Chevy Avalanche. This is big. More than a decade later, this would be crucial to helping solve this case. And the reason being is because the Chevy Avalanche is not commonly bought in that area. We covered the 4 victims, which was Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and Amber. The similarities between all 4 cases led the police to believe that it was the same killer. As the investigators started looking more into this, they found out these 4 women, they weren't the beginning. There was more. So, something that I do want to note, if you watch the Hulu documentary on this, you'll hear in one section where it says the police chief at the time tried to stall this case because he had so many skeletons in his own closet that he didn't want it to come out. So he was very hesitant to get the FBI involved, to get government agencies trying to help them, or other local police departments to try to help them out. He didn't want that because he didn't want everything to come out about him. So the next victim would be Valerie Mack. Originally, police labeled this victim as Jane Doe 6. She was a mother of a young son and was in foster care at an early age. Unlike the other victims, Valerie was not reported missing at the time of her disappearance. She worked as an escort and she went by Melissa Taylor. On November 19th, 2000, partial human remains were found in a wooded area in Manorville, New York, near Halsey Manor Road and Mill Road. Her torso was wrapped in a garbage bag and left near a public road. In April 2011, additional remains were found on Gilgo Beach, including a head, a right foot, and hands. Initially, these remains were classified as unidentified because it was connected to Jane Doe number 6. 2020 DNA testing tested her torso with the head, foot, and hands, and they were connected. They were connected. It's just terrible. But she was identified as Valerie Mack. Investigators then noted similarities between Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor. The next victim is Jessica Taylor. Her disappearance was in 2003. She was 20 years old and living in Manhattan when she disappeared. She worked as an escort in 2003 near the Manhattan area and Washington, D.C. So she was in a couple different spots. She was last seen working at the Port Authority bus terminal area in Manhattan between July 18th and July 22nd, 2003. In July 26, 2003, her remains were found in Manhattan, New York, approximately 45 miles east of Gilgo Beach. Her remains were found on top of a pile of scrap wood near Halsey Manor Road, north of the Long Island Expressway. There was plastic sheeting underneath her remains, but it was just like publicly displayed. That's disgusting. That's so horrible. I feel terrible for her. He's a fucked up guy. Another thing, investigators did open up and talk about how her tattoo was mutilated. Her torso was identified later that year. And then in March in 2011, her remains were found at Gilgo Beach. The remains that were found were her skull, her hands, and her forearm. The next victim is Karen. Initially identified her as Fire Jane Doe, or Jane Doe number 7. Karen was 34, from Manhattan. She was believed to work as an escort when she disappeared. The last time that she was seen was February 14th, 1996. 2 severed legs were discovered on Fire Island east of Gilgo Beach. For years, the victim was only known as Fire Island Jane Doe because they didn't know who it was. And then on April 11th, 2011, additional remains were found connected to her, which was her skull and her teeth. Rex is a despicable person. DNA testing did connect the skull and the teeth to the Fire Island Jane Doe. And then in 2023, they were able to identify her as Karen. So they finally were able to figure out who it was, thankfully. Amber's roommate giving identifying things about the vehicle that the client was driving and what they looked like. But it wasn't until 2022 when a newly formed Gilgo Beach task force was assigned to this case. They didn't start with the newest evidence. They wanted to start from the beginning. But when that task force was formed to take on this case, it was County Police Department, and then it was the FBI and the New York State Police. So they all were working together, trying to figure out who the serial killer was. So starting with the car, because they wanted to start at the beginning, like I previously stated, they narrowed it down because they searched through DMV records and just looked at the person's like physical description And then they also looked at the car and tried to make sure that it both lined up. And the owner that stood out the most was Rex, 6'4", architect from Massapequa Park. Second thing, cell phone records. So investigators reviewed historical cell phone records from the victims. Several burner phones used to contact the victims were connecting with the cell phone towers near Rex Architectural downtown Manhattan office and his home in Massapequa Park. The movements of the burner phones closely matched Rex's daily routine. They also recognized that the personal cell phone for Rex traveled alongside the burner phone, suggesting the same person was using it. And then lastly, the physical description. Witnesses described him as an unusually large man, which he fits the bill on that. They were really zoning in on this guy because he seemed like he was it. So in 2023, investigators started following Rex. They monitored his daily routine. They were trying to document his movements, gathering information without letting him know that he was a suspect. Because obviously he would change his mannerisms if he believes that he was a suspect. So finally, they were able to get him. So he was eating some pizza, walking down the street, and then throws away the crust. They grab that, they take it, and they get a DNA sample from that pizza crust. And the DNA from the pizza crust matched the DNA samples, like the hair strands left on the victims. So with that, they got a search warrant for obtaining his cell phone, computers, tablets, anything technology-wise. They wanted it because they needed to find evidence on this guy. And they also said that they wanted to get a warrant on going through his office as well. So the things that they found for digital evidence was extensive searches into the investigation because he wanted updates, right? He wanted to see if he was going to get caught. He wanted to see if he was a suspect. And then another thing that they found was violent pornography and methods of concealing and perfecting murders. Rex was making documentation of how he picked his victims, which was a small woman, preferably an escort. And another thing that was on this Word document was things that he believes he can do better. He would list that we need to get thicker rope because thinner rope was breaking, and it was just like a numerous amount of things like that that were just completely disturbing. And those allegations alone became a really big thing within the court proceedings. So on July 13th, 2023, Rex was arrested outside of his office in downtown Manhattan. This investigation deep dive should have been happening in 2010. That's just my opinion, but from what I have seen, do better, honestly. The family man, well respected, seemed like a normal guy. The man who had lived decades as a double life finally was caught. So after years of investigations into Rex, thousands of pages of evidence, the case against Rex finally entered the courtroom. July 14th, 2023, there was a court proceeding. Prosecutors charged him with the murders of Megan, Maureen, Melissa, Amber, and standing before the court, Rex had the audacity to say he wasn't guilty. Prosecutors argued after he pled not guilty that he did murder those 4 women and others. And prosecutors also argued that the evidence painted a picture of a serial killer that has operated for 2 decades. They presented DNA evidence from victims and from the DNA evidence that they've gotten from the pizza crust. There was hairs linked to Rex's household, cell phone records, burner phone activity, witness statements, and digital evidence collected from the warrant. The defense was stating that everything that they said is not true, basically, and Rex was innocent. Then, in a stunning turn, Rex changed his plea. He pled guilty.
You discussed this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
Have you had enough time to discuss this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorneys represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
I must say that the attorneys on both sides of this case have been excellent, unbelievable lawyers. Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a charge, that is the same as if you had gone to trial and been found guilty of that charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving a number of very important rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
From there, he admitted multiple murders. He didn't go into great detail, but he said that he did it, including the Gilgo Beach murders. The families that have waited decades for answers, this guilty plea marks one chapter closed. But it did not answer every question. Even with Rex behind bars, investigators continue to examine whether additional victims may be connected to Rex. They want to make sure that everything is found. I mean, their main concern is that there's more women out there that have not been found yet. To my knowledge, to this day, they're still searching and making sure that there's no other women.
Yes. There are no...
Stand up.
There are no words I can say. I am responsible for what was said in this room today. The words I would say have no meaning, and I'm going to leave it there at this time.
Speak up.
Mr. Heuermann, as Mr. Tierney said, I know that you're sorry that you got caught. I assume that you're sorry for what you've done to your wife and children. Are you a little bit sorry for what you did to these poor innocent women? 8 women that you strangled to death, at least 8 that we know of. Are you at least a little bit sorry for that? Yes?
Yes, I am.
You know what? You've been described as a very big man. But you're a disgusting and despicable small man, if you're a man at all. And you're a coward. Mr. Brown?
Nothing further.
All right, get him out of here.
So finally, we're at the sentencing on June 17th, 2023, nearly 33 years after his initial first victim. Emotional victim impact statements after decades of waiting for justice. When it was over, the judge ordered for him to be held without bail, which I'm very happy that he did that. Go judge. A couple times throughout this investigation, especially Shannan, they have dropped the ball completely. And the fact that it took 10 years to start really digging into this is despicable. The judge imposed the maximum amount of prison time that he could. Go judge. This guy's awesome. He received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 100 years in prison. This sentencing ensures Rex is going to be behind bars for the rest of his life. He deserves it, because no one deserves what he did to those victims. That is Rex's story of what he did to the victims. There's not a whole lot of details of like what he did to them. I couldn't find any. Basically, it's mostly the police's perspective of, hey, this is when we found the victims. We believe it was at these dates due to what we found evidence-wise. And I'm thankful that he's finally behind bars. I genuinely apologize for the family, and I hope that they're doing okay. And if anyone takes anything from this, please check on your loved ones. because you never know what they're going through. Overall, I hope you have a great rest of your day and be safe, because there's weirdos out there.